The African savanna shimmered beneath the fierce afternoon sun, waves of golden grass rippling toward a hazy horizon. Heat pressed down on the land like a heavy blanket, bending the air and blurring the distance. Beneath a scattering of flat-topped acacia trees, a pride of lions rested in the thin shade, their sides rising and falling in slow, satisfied breaths after a successful morning hunt. Flies buzzed lazily around them, and even the wind seemed too tired to move with purpose. Among the sleeping adults was a small cub, barely 3 months old, whose restless spirit refused to yield to the stillness of the day. The cub, whom his mother called Quito, blinked his bright amber eyes against the glare. Curiosity tugged at him more strongly than caution ever could. While the older lions dozed, Quito rose on unsteady paws and wandered away from the safety of the pride. His steps were soft against the sun-baked earth, and his tail flicked with playful excitement. Every sight and sound filled him with wonder, the flicker of butterflies lifting from the grass, beetles scrambling across the soil, the wavering mirage of heat rising like spirits from the ground. He batted at shadows and pounced on rustling stems, lost in the thrill of discovery. Not far from the pride lay a dark patch of earth where rainwater had once gathered during the wet season. Now it had shrunk into a thick, muddy basin, its surface cracked in places and glossy in others. Drawn by his own reflection shimmering faintly in the murky water, Quito crept closer. He leaned over the crumbling edge, stretching out one small paw to tap the surface. In an instant, the ground gave way. With a startled yelp, he tumbled forward into the pit, landing with a soft, sickening splash. Cold mud swallowed him up to his belly. He tried to scramble free, claws raking at the slippery walls, but the sludge clung to his fur like a living trap. The more he struggled, the deeper he sank. Panic exploded in his tiny chest. He cried out, high and desperate, his voice thin against the vastness of the plains. The mud crept higher, pulling at his legs, tightening around his ribs. His mother, Zola, still lay with the pride nearly a mile away. The breeze carried his cries in the wrong direction, scattering them across empty grassland instead of toward her ears. As Quito's strength began to fade, another animal approached the area in search of water. It was an older zebra stallion named Baraka, his striped coat marked by faint scars that told stories of narrow escapes. His herd grazed far behind him, but thirst had drawn him forward alone. When the faint sound of a cub's cries reached him, his ears pricked sharply. Instinct urged him to flee. A lion's voice, no matter how small, usually meant danger. Yet there was something different in the sound. No roar, no hunger, only terror. Baraka stepped cautiously through the grass and froze when he saw the scene before him. The lion cub was trapped, sinking slowly into the mud, his small head barely above the surface. Fear jolted through Baraka's body. Every lesson of survival screamed that lions were enemies, that he should turn and run before the pride returned. But the sight of the helpless cub stirred something deeper than instinct. This was not a hunter poised to strike. This was a child fighting to breathe. He edged closer to the pit, hooves pressing carefully into the fragile ground. Stretching his long neck, Baraka reached toward Quito, his muzzle straining to close the distance. He came within inches, but it was not enough. The cub cried again, weaker now, mud lapping at his chin. Baraka shifted his weight, risking the crumbling edge. Still, he could not reach him. Then movement flickered in the tall grass nearby. 3 hyenas emerged, their hunched shapes slinking closer, eyes bright with cruel anticipation. They had heard the cub's cries as well and smelled opportunity. Baraka's heart pounded violently. He positioned himself between the hyenas and the pit, snorting and striking the ground with sharp warning stomps. The hyenas fanned out, laughing in harsh, broken cackles, undeterred by a lone zebra. From far across the savannah, a faint roar echoed. Zola had sensed something wrong and was racing toward the sound, but she was still too distant to intervene. Baraka glanced toward the open plains, toward safety and escape. He could leave. He could save himself. Instead, he made a decision that defied every survival instinct he possessed. With one last look at the sinking cub, he turned and bolted across the grassland. He ran harder than he ever had before, muscles burning, breath tearing through his lungs. Ahead, he heard the rumble of an approaching engine. A safari patrol vehicle moved slowly along a dirt track, dust trailing behind it. Baraka burst onto the road directly in front of it. The driver slammed the brakes, tires skidding as the vehicle lurched to a halt. The rangers stared in confusion as the zebra refused to move aside. He stomped anxiously, then turned his head back toward the grasslands, stepping forward and glancing back again. One of the rangers, a seasoned wildlife officer named Nia, watched him closely. She had spent years studying animal behavior, and something in the zebra's urgency struck her. "He wants us to follow," she said firmly. Without hesitation, the team grabbed ropes, planks, and a medical kit as the jeep rolled forward. Baraka sprinted ahead, guiding them straight toward the muddy basin. They arrived to find Quito nearly submerged and Zola pacing frantically at the edge, her growls vibrating through the air. The hyenas lingered at a cautious distance, waiting for weakness. Baraka immediately resumed his position between them and the cub. The rangers worked quickly and calmly. Nia slid a rescue board across the mud while her partner secured a rope around the cub's small body. Zola stepped back just enough to allow them space, though her amber eyes never left her baby. With a coordinated pull, they lifted Quito free from the mud. He coughed and gasped, trembling violently. Zola rushed forward, gently gripping him by the scruff and carrying him to solid ground. She licked him clean with frantic devotion as he whimpered in relief. Moments later, the dominant male lion arrived, his roar thunderous enough to scatter the hyenas into the brush. For a tense second, the male lion locked eyes with Baraka. The zebra stood tall despite exhaustion, sides heaving. There was no chase, no charge. Only a silent understanding passed between predator and prey. Then Baraka lowered his head slightly, turned, and walked back into the tall golden grass without a sound. As the sun dipped lower and the heat softened into evening warmth, the savanna seemed to exhale. Quito rested safely against his mother, alive because of an act no one would have expected. The wild is ruled by instinct and survival, yet that day it bore witness to something rare, a moment when compassion overpowered fear. A creature born to flee became a protector. An enemy became a hero. And for a fleeting heartbeat in the endless rhythm of nature, the boundaries between hunter and hunted quietly dissolved. If this story moved you, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe so more people can experience powerful tales from the wild, where even in the harshest places, compassion can still find a way to shine.